It automatically put a mute on. All right, now we're set.
Okay. Look good?
Yeah, we're good. All right,
Okay.
and we are now live. So, welcome everyone to another Run Wild with us. Ask us absolutely anything. I'm Lisa Kastner. I am the founder and executive editor of Running Wild and RIZE Presses. I am here every week with your favorite editors, including the fantabulous Ben, who is by my side right now.
Good
And
evening.
and we are here to answer any questions that you may have. It can be around publishing, creative writing. It can be about the craft of writing. It could be about marketing, publicity, distribution, whatever it is, whatever you are curiosity about us, whatever. All you have to do is, if you do have a question, go ahead and pop that question into the comment section of whatever venue you may be watching this, and we will be more than happy to then repeat said question and then respond to it. So with
Many
that,
different ways.
in three different ways, typically, yes,
At least.
or at least we do our best to add on to one another's responses. So I do know though that Peter will not be joining us this week. He does have a personal commitment, which sounded amazing, and I asked him for pictures, which he may not share, or may ask us not to share.
No.
But hey, that's okay. It's all good.
We'll wait and see.
Yeah, we'll wait and see. So Ben, how was your week? Got anything exciting to share or fun to share?
Uh, it's just a pretty standard week. Working through a couple of novels, and about I've gone through one of them, and the author is going through behind me, and she said, "Don't go through again until she tells me to."
Oh,
And
okay. Mhm.
so I said, "Okay." So I went to the other one, and about halfway through that one, and then I'll turn it over to the author to let him follow me through.
Got it.
And so it's they're both progressing nicely.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Congratulations. That's always fun.
and both very well written and tracking along two different styles of writing, of course, and two different, totally different stories, but what they have in common is the good writing.
Well, as that sounds right. That's exactly that's what we're all about. Great stories, great writing. So, it sounds like you had a great week.
Yeah, and continuing to well, I need to put together a back cover copy for the um, anthology, the Rise anthology, and probably the Running Wild Press anthology as well.
Yeah,
To write those up.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is so cool. Yeah, and I'm in the middle of editing the um novellas for our next year's novella anthology. I've been busy with a lot of other, just projects and getting stuff done. So I've been a little bit stalled, but that's okay. We'll make it happen, So, and we've got two great books coming out actually this month, both I believe on February 14th. One of them is from Rise and it's called Fated to Flame, and it's like a sci-fi fantasy novel. Um, and the bottom line is, for the storyline, the answer lies uh, at the peak of a mountain where the souls of the flame reside. So, yeah, super exciting. Should be a fantastic. I know it's a fantastic read. You guys definitely should check it out if you're curious. It's by S.A. Gladden, Gladden, and I know the editor had just a blast working with the author. And the other one is an anthology that we came up with a couple years ago when we had our used to have our monthly storytellers happy hour. And so, for those who don't know, myself and one of our authors, Ruben T. Hazlett, we would co host a monthly happy hour, literally a happy hour, where we would invite authors and editors. They didn't have to be from Running Wild. They could just be, it could be, you know, someone who we're friendly with, or someone who was in town, or whatever. We'd get ask them to bring their favorite beverage or beverages, and then we had a like a fishbowl of prompts. And what we would do is we would go live, and live we would have everyone introduce themselves and maybe ask them a few silly questions. And then what would happen is everyone would pick from the fishbowl. And so they would get their prompt, and then they had to, on the fly, tell a story based on that prompt. It could be true, it could be made up, whatever. And oh my gosh, we just had such a blast. Teehee and I have been talking about rebooting that series just because it was so much fun, and we got a lot of positive feedback on it. So during one of them, we had one of our members of Running Wild, Lisa Montaigne, who was on it, and I believe her prompt was actually red flags. And we all said, "Hey, wait a minute, that would make a great anthology of just all the different, what experience essays on different experiences individuals have had where they got red flags and maybe they ignored the red flag." And, obviously that often is related to like dating in some capacity. It didn't have to be a true story, but again, typically it does turn out to be a true story. So anyway, that anthology is actually coming out February 14th. Big shock, considering the topic. Of so two A little less than 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
And I've read it. It's actually a super fun collection. There's also going to be a an event associated with it, like a reading event. I believe it is actually on February 14th. Lisa's going to be hosting it in the Los Angeles area. Again, this should be so much fun. Absolutely fun. Lisa and I, a couple years, well, several years ago at this point, we had a couple of events at AWP where I was hosting, on behalf of Running Wild, several panels. And Lisa and I worked together on hosting a live reading event at AWP that year. That again we sponsored. And she knows what she's doing. She's got great game when it comes to these kinds of things, and she's, like I said, she's just an excellent event planner and host. So yet another, this promises to be an absolute blast. So look for those. We're also going to be most likely having a couple of articles out, regarding, if not at least one article out about the both publications coming out soon. So definitely, as I mentioned, look out for those. Rod Gilly says a very happy hello. Rod, as always, fabulous to see you. I know that, for those of you who don't know, Rod actually has this really fun podcast where he interviews various authors and editors, and he had interviewed Ben a bit ago about his experiences with Running Wild. And um, Ben, didn't he talk to you about being an instructor as well, or was it just focused on really your Running Wild
Started off
experiences?
with the question of what is an acquisition editor, and how is it different from like a everyday line editor, and so we talked a little bit about how our process is to pick titles and
Hmm.
acquire titles for Running Wild Press and Rise, and then we went into just the approach, my personal approach to editing as a reader, and making sure that the story flows and the writing's good. And then we had a great time. We actually had to have two sessions. Rod invited me back for another session, so we broke it into two parts because I had plenty to say. That's why,
As you should.
as I should. And I've got a story. I've got a story in Red Flags.
Do you now?
I do.
And what might that be about, young man?
It's called One Soldier Too Late,
Mm.
which it was creative nonfiction straight out of 1983.
All right. Share to give us a little peek there.
It was a an interaction
Hmm.
with a German girl whose name will have to be read in the story,
Got it. Okay.
and uh, just it ended up where Lisa and I both talked about it. The red flag part of it was actually I was the red flag. I was her red flag, and and so
I'm
it's
sorry.
the from the perspective. It doesn't necessarily mention red flag, but you'll see that she wasn't my red flag. I was hers, and I was
Got it.
one when I was one soldier too late.
Got it. Well, you know what? Actually, that's really cool. Like it's typically people talk about how they experienced the red flag, but the fact that you were the red flag is kind of awesome. What a great
It
spin.
became evident to both Lisa and I, and or Lisa and me, and it was evident. Yeah, because I mentioned that to her. I said, I think I was a red flag. She said, "Oh yeah, yeah, you were."
That's great. Rod Gilly says the very you Ben were the very first poet to do a show on Relax and Chat. Oh no, sorry. The very first poet to do a show on Relax and Chat was Anatoly Molokov. I hope I didn't just botch that too badly. And he read his poem "The Melting Star." You have got to see that. He did such a great reading. Okay, guys, that's your challenge for the week, or at least one of them so far, because we're only 12 minutes into this. So your first challenge is to go back and check out "Relax and Chat" with Rod and Anatoly's reading of "The Melting Star." So, oh, that also reminds me of another event, you guys. So, one of our other amazing acquisition editors and editors, period, is Cisco Cody. And Cisco is also in charge of WeHo Reads, which for those not from the Los Angeles area, WeHo is a short, an abbreviation for West Hollywood. And there is going to be a WeHo Reads event next week on, hold on, I'm looking this up now. I'm looking it up because I already know I can't make it. I think it's on Wednesday. I'm pretty sure it's on Wednesday. If you're interested, if you're from the area, go ahead and search on it. Again, it's just WeHo Reads, and you can also probably use Cisco Cody or Cody Cisco, sorry, duh, in it in that search to help you find it. It's totally free. These are great events. He has them monthly. They are so much fun, and it really gets to introduce you to some phenomenal artists, not just in the Los Angeles area, but those who have some affiliation with Los Angeles. And we actually, one of our authors, who just mentioned a few moments ago, Teehee Hazlett, he is going to be literally flying in for the day just to do the reading and then flying home. He is such a great speaker. Teehee is so dang fun. You guys will have a blast. Unfortunately, I'm actually volunteering at a homeless shelter on Wednesday, and I had made that commitment ages ago, so I won't be able to make it. But I am a regular at WeHo Reads, like as I mentioned, just because it really is a great way to find lesser heard voices within the Los Angeles area. So, Rod Gilly says David Fitzpatrick and I shot his episode today. For those of you who don't know, David Fitzpatrick is one of our authors
Mhm.
who he actually had a memoir published several years ago, which was absolutely groundbreaking. It was phenomenal. And David and I know each other from our MFA days. We both went to Fairfield University. Rod says, we talked about both of you quite a bit. Well, that's a little bit terrifying. I'm not sure how good that is, But I'll I will stay on the positive side of this and assume that this was a very good thing. David was super kind. He actually sent us uh, or gave us the option to give us gifts, and it was like, do you like flowers, cookies, or brownies? And I was like, well, I mean, I don't know, I guess brownies and flowers, and sent this like just amazing box of brownies, which reminds me I need to let my husband know they're in the fridge because he'll just die over them. Anyway, so he says, back to Rod, I will get that video put together ASAP. You both have many fans. Oh, we honestly, I don't know about you, Ben. Actually, I feel like I can a little bit speak for you. I think we're all just huge fans of our authors and our editors. So, and then Rod says, looking forward to Running Wild Press's release of Wolf Boy. That again, that's David's upcoming book. The name is a little misleading. It's not, or it's not, it isn't misleading, but it's not about like werewolves or anything like that. You guys have to pick it up to get the reference. It's actually a great title. It's perfect for this novel. And it was actually Cody Cisco who was the editor for that. And he said it's one of those books that he's really super proud about. So and Kimberly Butler asks, what is the name of David Fitzpatrick's memoir? Hold on. Let me look this up. Ah, that's right. Sharp. SHARP. And let me get you a link to it. Let's see. Sorry for the delay. It looks like it's still actually available by paperback and ebook. And I just put the link to it in the chat. Again, just for anyone who might be interested. Rod says, many people think of you as a publishing queen, and Ben, not only a wizard, a star. You should consider making a movie. I don't know how smart that is. I mean, I love you for the thought and the concept. That's really, really kind. But I think people would be terrified if they know the true Ben and Lisa and Peter. Like if they knew what we were like
We're
outside.
so well behaved on Thursday nights.
We really are. I mean, we actually just had Ben couldn't make it this year, but you're gonna have to be able to make it in future years. We just kicked off our inaugural uh, get together of Running Wild folks who were engaged in the previous year. So because we had a stellar year last year, our overall sales numbers um, increased by like 840%, something insane like that, compared to the previous year. We had books that were named like best of the month. We had books that were named to like most anticipated. We really, I mean, just had a phenomenal year last year. And we blew away all of our objectives. So at the beginning of every year, we set a bunch of objectives, goals, right? Like any good business should. And I mean, when I say we blew away all of our goals, I mean, it's as if they went poof. So to thank everybody for all of their amazing work, we invited them to a carnival cruise. So a 3-day, 2-night cruise from Long Beach to Ensenada, Mexico, and we all just had an absolute blast. Everyone truly had a great time, got a lot of fabulous feedback. So based on the feedback, if we continue to blow away our numbers, we will continue to invite everyone and their spouse or significant other who was engaged in our activities for that year in which we blew our numbers away to a carnival cruise. So I'm really looking forward. I mean, like it was just so much fun. And the only goody two shoes who stayed back, no, I'm just kidding. He wasn't the only one. But anyway,
And I
was
would have been
Ben.
cheap because my significant other is my wife, so it would have been like 2 for 1.
See? It would have been amazing.
Save so much money.
Rod Gilly says, I read a bit of Sharp on Amazon today. Man, it is gripping. It really is. David has just truly a phenomenal writer's voice. Rod says, missing Peter. Where is he tonight? So Peter had
He was
a
behind on some editing, so we didn't allow him to come on tonight.
we locked the door before he could actually make it in, and it's what
I just
happens,
eliminated
man.
myself.
It's what happens. You don't bring it, you're gone. Like that's just how it works. No, all teasing aside, Peter actually did have a really fun personal engagement to attend to tonight, so he can't make it, but he does anticipate he can make it next week. Rod Gilly says David raved about the editor who worked with him on Wolf Boy. Oh yeah, Cody Cisco, who is our acquisition editor as well for Rise, was the editor for David Fitzpatrick's upcoming book Wolf Boy, and we had actually acquired another book of David's as well. And let's just say David was just like, "Can I work with Cody again?" Like he was that kind of amazing. And I'll be honest, it comes down to, is the editor available, and if the editor is available, are they interested? And obviously, Cody did enjoy working with David as well. Rod says the Justice League, the Running Wild Press editing team, all heroes. Okay, that's really funny. Oh goodness, you're gonna have to show up next time then with like a cape, or maybe like a Batman, the Batman cowl.
I disappointed Rod already because I didn't have a wizard hat. And he didn't forget. I was supposed to have a wizard hat one day.
Oh, that's right, you were. What's wrong with you, man?
I'm just really behind.
You're clearly behind,
Yes.
obviously. So I've got a question for you.
Okay.
What does an acquisition editor do?
And so learn, in my case, learn as I go. But it's great to be involved with the choices made to acquire the works we're going to publish,
Mm,
and it's not in a vacuum. It's not just me doing it. It is a team of us who will get together. We got one coming up in March, I think the 23rd or 24th of March, where we'll look at the titles we have. There will be different levels of how much of a novel is read, which is a good thing. And so we get to bounce ideas of what we saw from different perspectives and ultimately make the choice of what we're going to acquire, thus acquisition.
so how do
And
you how do you come so how do you what do you take into account when you're looking at the submissions, one, and two, can you give us like I mean, I know I live and breathe it too, right, because I'm also part of the acquiring team. But if you could, you also give us a feel for what happens in those acquisition meetings.
my approach going in is to review the titles and the writing. And I personally look for a hook up front. Get me engaged in the story quickly. Don't make me read 50 pages of prequel.
Mm,
The story should have that hook to where you're interested in the characters right away in chapter one, or the first few pages, or first 20 pages, 50 pages. And then in the background though, you're looking at the writing. Does the sentence structure flow? Does it make sense of what they're saying? Are they the characters speaking like they have personality. I guess that's a good way to say it.
Mhm.
And so one thing that I look at it to not disqualify, but to put over in my maybe or my no file is the things that have been done before, or stories, novels that have or that rely too much on what's been done before. The playing off kind of like it's a, a joke that uses somebody else's classic work.
Mm.
Um, it might make a good short story, but to carry it through a novel, it really gets old because it has been done. You know, I remember one that keyed off of Animal Farm,
Mm.
and it became a joke that got really stale really quick.
Mm.
And it could have been a short story. It should have been a short story, but not a novel.
Mhm.
And then so I'll take my list of yes, maybes, and no's to the meeting, and as a group, we'll go down the list and we'll see uh, any if there's five of us with yeses, the chances are we'll keep that one.
Mhm.
And but the real and on the other side, if anything that everybody says no to, we won't keep that one. Um, and then the maybes are where the good conversations come in, because we want to see what other people see in the story, and how they judge it. And uh, if I think I've said this before, but if Peter says it's good writing, it's good writing. And so there's a certain amount of trust in the group that hey, if you like it, then you see something, then I like it too. You change my maybe to a yes, or change my no to a maybe, and then
Mhm.
to a yes.
Mhm.
But they're really fun sessions, and they're I think author centric, that to look for the stories that may not be there, but if we reply to the author and ask a few questions or make a few suggestions that they are willing to listen to and maybe work with us, then that may go to a yes,
Mm.
just because of that, because we see potential in the ones we haven't chosen, but it's still got that good hook to it. It's a good story with a little bit more polish. With the right editor, we can work with it if the author is willing to work with us. And so we'll make those email notifications and ask the author. And so it's a fun interactive process, not only between the acquisition editors, but also with the authors in those certain cases.
And we have had a few where we knew it needed work, and but we knew it also had a lot of potential. And when we went reached out to the author and noted, like, here's some areas that we think could use a little work. Would you be open to working with an editor on this? They came back, and I actually, there's one I can think of right now that we are actually putting out this year, which I believe it was And the Train Kept Moving. And I remember a few of us got together and flat, just met with the author. And I'll be honest, I was a little worried because, look, a lot of these books, for many of these authors, this is their very first book, right? Or this is the first story they ever really put their heart and soul into. And so for them, this is a very intimate, they're very passionate about this story. And so they can tend to be very protective, to Ben's point. And we all understand that, because all of us, we're all no everyone is both an editor and an author. We've all been there, right? And uh so anyway, it's always it's a sensitive conversation, let me just put it that way. And I sat down with him and just said, we sat down and explained some of the key areas that we felt could use some, like, a little heavier hand, I guess you could say, in terms of revision. And he was like, you know what, I never thought about it that way before, but I totally get it. Yeah, I'm happy to do it. And I mean, he was actually eager, right? I mean, he was excited at the idea of working with an editor on the revision. And that honestly, just having the author coming back and being that positive and that I mean, I already said eager, but
Open, just
really
open,
open to
open minded.
working.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. To really working with that author or with the editor is amazing, because we've also had instances where we thought, hey, this is pretty solid writing. It does have some room for improvement. Asked the author if they were willing, if he or she was willing to actually work with an editor, and the response initially was like, yeah, but it was like a passive, like, yeah, sure, right. And literally had one guy who, when he received the feedback, and this with one of our more seasoned editors who has uh, actually been the editor for one of our best of the years from Kirkus, turned around and said, what do you mean you want these edits? I have an MFA. This was my MFA, my final. This is what got me my MFA. So it doesn't need edits. You are completely wrong. And, then actually got picked a fight with with his editor. So the editor obviously called me and said, Lisa, help, because I this is insane. Um, and so I got, interjected and just said, look, when we say collaborative, it means that you actually have a conversation with the editor. But if there are areas that are really so lacking, right, that truly need a lot of work, we need you to be open to at least having a dialogue with your editor about why you feel as though it doesn't need the edits. And the answer can't be because I said so, right? The answer needs to be more logical than that, right? Like, maybe it's something that you thought you covered in another area, or things like that. Anyway, we ended up turning around the guy. Let's say when I well, what after that conversation, again, was not very open, and we ended up actually pulling the offer for the book. And that is, I need you guys to understand, that is not something that we ever want to do. um Typically, we're putting in hundreds of hours to work to edit a book, and especially in the first round of review and the second round of review. So, we are just as, or at least I can say, we have a lot of buy-in to make this successful. And so the feedback that we're providing it again, not because, hey, I'm bored, let me see if I can screw with this guy. It's, hey, I want to make sure that this is the absolute best story it can possibly be. So it needs to be a serious conversation. It needs to be one where the author is actually, listening and open and having that conversation with the editor. So again, it's not something we like to do. It does happen, unfortunately. And thankfully it's rare when it does happen. Um, Rod Gilly says, Shay Galloway is so charming. Man, Running Wild Press is a bunch of crazy, talented writers. Actually, you guys should go do a Google search on Shay Galloway, Galloway. She got a Kirkus review that was phenomenal. And there is going to be another review that'll be published by Forward Review, which is a huge review organization. And they actually, I may not be quoting this quite exactly right, but they said that her book, The Valley of Sage and Juniper, reinvents the Western saga. So, I mean, that is just insane. Like, that's phenomenal. So, I'm right there with you, Rod. She is absolutely brilliant. Rod also says, at the beginning of this year, I had a nightmare about a floating red pen. Well, that's kind of interesting. Thanks, Ben. David and I agreed today that you're brilliant. Well, another duh. Of course he's brilliant.
Oh, you with the red pen. It
Oh,
is.
check you out. Holly Rose says, "Have
Take
you
that,
ever turned
Ron.
down?" Huh? I'm sorry. What'd
Take
you
that,
say?
Ron. Have another nightmare.
There you go. Holly Rose says, "Have you ever turned down a book like the one you just mentioned with the MFA person and learned that later it was indeed published elsewhere?" What we've actually had happen, we've had a couple things happen. One, we've made offers regarding books that the I actually, if someone isn't sure that they want to go with us, they want to see if they can get an agent, or they want to see if they can go with another, maybe they have a dream publisher. I encourage them to actually use the offer that we've provided as sort of like a bargaining chip with that other publisher. So that's one. Two, we've had tons of books that we just simply didn't have a chance to get to because they got an offer elsewhere. And the author will reach out to me and say, "Hey, I've got an offer from this other house. Have you reviewed my book yet? And would you be willing to make an offer?" And I'm very honest with them. Like for Running Wild, we already have a catalog backed up through 2026. And for Rise, we already have full lists through minimally 2025. I think we're bordering on 2026 as well. So, I let them know, if we are your dream publisher, and from my understanding is we actually do have quite a few authors who for whatever reason, word of mouth, maybe they've read several of our books, whatever the case may be, we're their dream publisher, right? And that's actually how we did get oh, I'm looking for it. I'm looking for it. Because I showed it last week. um Escape Route. That's actually how we obtained Escape Route, because Elon messaged me privately and said, because we had published one of his short stories, and said he had an offer on Escape Route. And but he actually was really loved our process, he really loved our people, and he would prefer going with us. So at that time, we weren't as our lists weren't as full, I guess you could say. And so I said, well, send me the manuscript that you'd submitted through Submittable. I'll share it with our acquisition team. At the time was Peter and Ben, and then we'll make a decision, and then we just took it from there. And we've also had people who submitted books to us, and we acquired it, right? Or not acquired it, we sent them an offer, and they didn't like the terms of our contract, which is fine, right? It's not a problem. We'll say, okay, great, no worries, wish you all the best. Then they go and get an offer from another publisher, and when they get the terms, they start actually interacting with them. Let's just say it's not the experience that they thought they were going to have. And then they come back to us and ask, "Hey, is that offer still open? Would you still be open to having me publish you, or having us publish that author?" And we have had instances where authors came back and just said, "Hey, I'm going to work with this other publisher," and we say, "Great." I mean, look, the bottom line is, this isn't about my ego. This isn't about Ben's ego. It's not about Peter's ego. It's about finding authors. It's actually changed that. It's about finding amazing stories that are really well written and putting them out there. And we only publish between like 10 and 15 books per house per year. So in total, that's between 20 and 30 books. So bottom line, there's no way in hell or heaven are we going to actually going to be able to publish every single title that we receive that has potential. We just can't, right? So if an author would prefer going with another house, then I encourage it. I think it's fabulous. And you know, to date, as far as I'm aware, there hasn't been a title that we have turned down, that we turned down because we knew that it needed a lot of work, that actually got published elsewhere. Not to my knowledge. Now, mind you, we've only been around since 2016, and I'm not saying that with any kind of sarcasm. So that's what, 2016 for, so 7 years, right? We've been around almost 7 years. So, I'd say ask me that question after a decade, and you may get a different answer. But right now, as far as I'm aware, there has never been anybody who sent us a book that we turned down for a reason, right? Other than our slate's too full. And even then, ones that we've turned down because our slate's too full, as far as I'm aware, they weren't published elsewhere. So, you know, but again, it's not about that, right? It's about getting those great voices out into the market. So I don't know, Ben, do you want to add anything to that, or?
Yeah, I think the great voices. I think the collective approach is not about our egos, like you said. It's about Running Wild Press's ego and the
Mm,
reputation that goes along with it, and letting the voices build that reputation. So that's what we're more focused on, the the company, the organization,
mm,
and and getting the right voices to support when we say that we're a place where this if you've been rejected and but you got good writing, this is your place and this is your home. And then we find those voices that support that ideology to say this is, if you've got that weird little story that everybody's saying that's a weird little story,
mm.
we like it, and we'll definitely take a look at it and be fair about it, and give you feedback on it a lot of times. And that's another thing that I've always appreciated doing is sending a notice back with the rejection and saying, if you work on this, you got some great characters. They just don't work well together. They don't work in the scene together. But if you polish this, please resubmit later in a subsequent year. And as an author myself, you appreciate that kind of personal touch and personal encouragement. And so when we get a chance to do that, it's rewarding on this end.
Yeah, 100%. And, just to piggyback a little bit, those books that, or those stories that we receive that have potential, like the long form ones that we review on a quarterly basis, if it's thematic, meaning everyone who reviewed it and said maybe, but not right now, we'll gather all those notes, and we do our best to provide those notes to the author and make that offer of, if you make these revisions or if you address these concerns and resubmit, we will be more than happy to look at it again. We actually even had a memoir. I can't remember what the memoir was about, but I remember all of us, me, Cody, Ben, Peter, we read it and realized that what the author had done, it was just basically like, the best way I have to explain it, it's as if you tried to read something and it was just one continuous sentence, and 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 so the author had basically just done a mind dump, right? So there was no real story in it. She just kept writing and figured like that, so this is what a memoir is. She didn't really know what a memoir was. And so, but her writing was so passionate, and that, both Ben and Peter said, can you do me a favor, can you actually get on a call with her and explain to her how to write a memoir at a high level, like from a structural level. So I did. I made the offer to her, if you want to talk about how to revise this, I'm happy to do it. And we sat down. I think we talked for about an hour about how to, what actually is a memoir and how to restructure it. And she was very open. And so again, I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not going to do that every single time. If I did that, I mean, we get over, uh gosh, I want to say we get around 1,000 submissions a year or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So I physically can't do it. But if we really do think the book has a lot of potential, then I'm more than happy to do something like that.
Coach, you were going to talk about the memoir that we got that the situation was very much focused on not only the writer who was the wife, but also a lot about the husband. And
Mhm.
when we went back and asked her, would you be interested in doing a dual memoir with your husband, to where you had a
Oh,
juxtaposition of the story and of the events that you're talking about? And she told us no, and it would be a much more interesting memoir if you had done it this way,
mhm.
and we're willing to work with you and we'll take it, and but she was pleased with the way it came out, but it was sometimes the husband was the villain, so it was that's why we wanted to hear the villain's voice coming
Right.
from a different perspective. And I think she saw him as the villain and didn't want him in. But it's
I
just
don't
that
think
kind
he
of
knew.
conversation that is good.
I don't think he knew she wrote it. I mean, that's the other part, right?
Yeah.
And she, she was pretty much kind of like, well, my way or the highway. We said,
Yeah.
okay, no worries. And I think that was another instance of she figured if we didn't pick it up, somebody else would. But as soon as a publisher finds out that she was very passionate in her, let's say, villain sections, as soon as they would find out, I'd be surprised if a publisher accepted it because of the liability associated with how she was actually writing her husband. So, and that he had not advocated it. So, um, Rod says many of my viewers have said that they are heading to Running Wild Press. Just the concept of a team um, making decisions and the writer editor team effort has thrilled writers. Well, that's awesome. Thanks, Rod, for sharing that. Holly says, what limits how many books you put out in a year? What limited people or limited resources like printer time, etc.? Holly, that's a really interesting question. So it's a couple of things. It is, we actually have two product managers who handle all the things around, cover design, interior formatting, stuff like that. A lot of it comes down to how long does it take to actually edit the novel, it's the work itself. And the reason I say that is for 2023, we originally had scheduled, I want to say around 25, maybe 30 books in total between Running Wild and Rise. And we're putting out 18. The reason we're putting out 18 is not because we didn't have enough people. It's because there were several books that, for various reasons, it took a lot longer to actually go through the collaborative editorial process than would be normal. We had ones that it was all of a month or 2 months, which was amazing, right? I mean, they were that clean, they were that fabulous. And then we had others that I'm going to bet are going to take some are now done, to be honest, right? And they're already slated for 2024, and some are still in progress. Um, and they're going to take more like a year, 2 years, and that's okay. You know, and
I'm
again, to
working
be,
on one with a year right now.
yeah,
It'll be the end of the summer, and it'll be the fall at the earliest, I think.
and to be honest, I think a lot of publishers, they would not even, if they knew a piece was going to take that long, either you'd get kicked out and they wouldn't consider your work again, or they wouldn't even consider it in the first place. And a lot of these were pieces that we saw a lot of potential in. And when we talked to the author, if they would be willing to work with us on the revisions, they were excited. So, Rod says they have told me that the personality of Running Wild Press is very rare among small presses. As Ben and I talked about in his episode, RWP treats a new writer same as you treat Stephen King. I don't know that I'd go that far. I mean,
Yeah, I don't even like Stephen King.
I like Stephen King, but I don't. I mean,
He's
we
Stephen
do our
King.
best to treat everyone equally. I think that that's true, absolutely. We have had some prima donnas, to be honest, prima donna authors, and again, it's not the majority; it's definitely the minority. And what's
You had to
interesting to
take a
me
book
is,
back
huh?
from me. You had to take a book back from me once.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, again, it was someone who they were a bit challenging, to be polite.
I was glad to let it go. Don't get me wrong. I was glad to let you have it back.
Well, I mean, we've had ones where, we already described what, at least two, right? Where either that we had to let it go or the author moved on to another publisher again, which is awesome, right? I think it's fabulous that they find another publisher. Um, but yeah, no, we just try to treat everyone equally. And you'd be surprised, the authors who've been published by at least other mid-size, if not major publishers, a lot of them come back to us. Like they may get an offer from a larger house, but they don't feel like it's going to be taken, it'll be treated the same way. Let me just put it that way. So they actually want to come back. Rod says, you say we want to help you make your story the very best it can be. What more could a writer want? That dedication sets you apart from other presses. Well, again, that's very kind. I think that most publishers want the story to be the very best it can be because that's what increases sales. I mean, in reality, right? It's got a great hook, it's a great story. Hopefully, it's great writing. So in theory, that should sell well along with 100 other reasons. But Rod, that is very kind. Holly Rose says, or maybe the husband wasn't a writer type. Yeah,
We don't know. We see, if we could have taken that as the answer. We could work, and make it, side by side with the two stories, but it wasn't even that clear. It was just a no.
Holly Rose says, "Why is there a difference? Why two press names? Why Running Wild and Rise?" So, Holly, I am going to challenge you to go to runningwildpress.com, and that is where you are going to find all of the backstory around Rise and Running Wild and what their unique objectives and strategies are. Uh, it's all out there on the internet, love. And you can find it not just on our website, but there have been several articles, including one recently in New York Weekly about us and what we've done. We've had articles in Forbes. We've had articles. We just had an article actually published in Entertainment Monthly. So just do a Google search on Running Wild, probably my name and Rise, and you will be shocked at the amount of press you will find. Holly also asked, how did the two names come to be? Again, Holly, I love you, hun. But I'm gonna challenge you to go out there and just do a little bit of research. Again, you would be surprised at how much information is available to you. Rod says, as long as you pull out all the brown M&Ms, I'm happy. All right, Ben, that's on you, man. If he got brown M&Ms, I don't have anything to do with it.
Yeah. I don't even look at the color. They're M&Ms. Just eat them, Ron. Just eat them.
Yeah, what are you, allergic to brown ones or something? What's wrong with you?
The red dye. We gotta take the red dye away from you.
Right? I don't know.
Red dye. It
Ben, do you
could
want
be,
to
but
add
it's
any?
not.
Oh, what? Lisa is likely too young. Ben, did you get the M&M thing? I knew the M&M thing. Will you stop? Although I like the too young reference, but
Wait a minute. What does that say about me?
I think it just says you're the wiser of the two.
That's it.
Yep. I don't know, Ben. Do you want to add anything to all that diatribe I just blurted out?
I think the naming, it is out there. You can find it. I think Running Wild says a lot about come run wild with us, and because we're not tamed, we're not domesticated like other publishing houses would be. We do have that uh, wild side. The and the rise is just for marginalized voices. So it's, I mean, there's reason to have the two imprints, and very interesting to read about them and see where we've been and where we're going, and the the excitement about it. I think it's looking forward to a bigger, broader future. And it goes back to why what are our limits, and because we are a small press, uh, the I'm I'm 6 novels behind already, but we'll get there.
Yeah,
And
and yeah, I'm a bit behind as well, but we get there. Excuse me.
but that's a good thing. We'd rather be behind than sitting here in the cobwebs waiting for the right book to come by. We're getting the incredible submissions and some tough choices, and the choices are getting tougher. I think each quarter we see more and more conversation about some books that we would like to see published, and it's just a matter of capacity at this point.
Hmm. Yeah, that's true. And I mean, honestly, the first 2 years, I want to say, that Running Wild was in existence, I was going out to friends who just wrote amazing stories and begging them to let me publish their work. And some of them, they just thought, they couldn't believe that anyone was making them an offer, first of all. And second of all, they thought, oh, you're not going to be around very long. Most small publishers, you know, uh, close shop within the first 2 years, maybe three, if that. And so they were very, very skeptical. And then as they saw the quality of the work that we were bringing forward and all the accolades we were getting, then that's when we really started getting some really amazing submissions. Rod says, this year, things are going so well. Major improvement. I only have 22 hours work that needs to be done in 15 hours. I bet you guys can relate to that. I would say yes. Kimberly says, please underestimate me, us. Oh, we don't underestimate. Well, honestly, my hope is that authors that we make offers to understand that, you know, we see you, right? We see the value in you and your work, and that we take your work seriously. And actually the same for those that we haven't acquired, and that our intent is so that, your amazing story and fantastic writing really gets out there, and you get the fans that you deserve and you get the readers you deserve. So Rod says, Lisa, I had this fella on my show who said that he submitted a book to you and you accepted it, and he replied, are you sure?
It was a
um
novella.
it was a novella. That is quite possible. We've had a couple of those where
He's talking about the Cuban, Lisa.
oh, that's right, you did, didn't you? And I was like, have you lost your mind? Yes,
Yeah.
I'm sure. So, the
It was a
same,
novella in stanza form to backfill
yeah.
for everyone else.
And the
And
same with your narrative poem collection. You said the same thing. You were like, you don't really want to publish this. I'm like, you are on the fucking team, man. Of course I do. So, my only rule is typically if it's somebody who's on our team, I ask them if they're comfortable with me being their editor. And so far, everyone said yes, but that could change in a heartbeat. So
I get to be your editor, so it works. It balances out.
that's true. That is true. You do get to be my editor. So, and the fun part is when we brainstorm ideas for the next book. That's always fun. Or to like strengthen a storyline. We're really good at that too. So, wow. And with that, it's already 6 o'clock Pacific time, 9 p.m. Eastern time. Again, I want to thank Ben, who is absolutely fantastic to be here. And I want to thank Kimberly, Rod. I want to thank Holly. I want to thank everybody who's asked us questions. This has just been a whole lot of fun. We look forward to seeing you guys, same bat time, same bat channel next week.
Same red
And until
pin.
then, have an amazing week. And Ben, Rod, there you go. Now you get to have another nightmare about red pens.
There it comes.